Hi, everyone. Welcome to Story Mantra. I'm your host, Anju Gattani. And the reason I do Story Mantra is because I live my mantra by one word: story, storytelling, and the best of story. And of course, today we have the best storyteller on earth. Her name is Asha Lemmie. Hi, Asha.
Hello.
Asha is not your everyday, ordinary girl, which she looks like right now, the girl next door. She is, in fact, the New York Times bestselling author of 50 Words for Rain. After graduating from Boston College with a degree in English literature and creative writing, Asha relocated to New York City, where she worked in book publishing. Asha writes historical fiction that focuses on bringing unique perspectives to life. In normal times, she divides her time between New York, London, and Kyoto. And this book, 50 Words for Rain, is Asha's first novel. And I have it here on my Kindle. And once again, my Kindle insists that I play solitaire, which I don't. And here we are. Could you hold up the hardcover, Asha, for everybody? Yay. So you know that you can buy two versions. You've got the Kindle, you've got the paperback. And of course, her book is available everywhere. Why not? Because 50 shades, 50 words. Wrong word, sorry there.
Oh my gosh, you're so not the first person to do that.
50, well, I'm normal then. But no, 50 Words for Rain was Amazon's top 10 books of 2020 and Amazon Spotlight for September. It was Good Morning America's book club pick for September, and I'll be posting that link below the video. It's a Barnes & Noble pick for September, the New York Times Editor Choice pick, the Nobel Peace Prize winner for Malala Yousafzai's Literati Book Club pick. Oh my God, Asha, that's just incredible. Oh my gosh, that's simply astounding. So before we let Asha do all the talking, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her book, because in case you're looking for something to read, this is a book you're going to want to pick up, because the New York Times review said Asha Lemmie's sprawling, thought-provoking debut novel, 50 Words for Rain, will give you 50 reasons to cancel the rest of your day. I'm halfway through the book, and I'm going to cancel the rest of today's events to finish that book, hopefully. It's phenomenal. So what is 50 Words for Rain all about? Such is 8-year-old Noriko, or Nori Kamisa's first lesson in Kyoto, Japan, 1948. Do not question, do not fight, do not resist. She will not question why her mother abandoned her with only these final words. She will not fight her confinement to the attic of her grandparents' imperial estate. And she will not resist the scalding chemical baths she receives daily to lighten her skin. Spanning decades and continents, 50 Words for Rain is a dazzling epic about the ties that bind, the ties that give you strength, and what it means to be free. Asha, tell me. Oh, I have a million questions to ask you.
Okay.
First of all, how did the story come about?
That's an interesting question that I have a long, rambling answer to.
We're all ears. Go ahead.
So I wish I could say that I had one singular source of inspiration for this story, but it wouldn't be true. I wrote this over many years. Some people have said that I wrote the entire thing as a teenager, and that's not true. I had the idea, and I started jotting some chapters down, but I didn't actually string it all together and finish it until I was 22. So still young, but not that young. And I wanted to join the Peace Corps after college, but I wasn't in good health at the time, and so I wasn't able to go. I was advised not to leave the hospitals in developed countries. That if I got sick in a developing country, I might have some problems. So I was advised to stay here, and I was extremely depressed about that. I really wanted to go. Excuse me. So I was kind of in this funk, and I decided I was going to finish my novel because that was something I could do from a desk, and I hoped it would make me feel better. And it did, and it didn't, because once I finished it, I decided to try to get it published, which was awful. I'm sure you know it's not a walk in the park at all. And, with my age and with me being, a young woman of color, I definitely feel like I was not taken seriously. When I first set out to do this, I'm not I guess, your standard old white guy who people will immediately assume is a serious writer, you
Okay.
know. So I felt like maybe it wasn't going to happen for me. Or maybe it would happen like one day. I wasn't expecting it to happen by 26. But I've just been really overwhelmed by the reaction to the book. This is more than I would have ever dared to even fantasize about. So I've been very lucky.
So what were your hopes for this book? Considering you understand your age factor and the issue of being an author of color and, just having come out of university with this book, what were your hopes and dreams? What were your targets?
I really wanted to have somebody read my book and say, I will remember the story. Like that, it was sort of a vague sense, but that I've read a lot of books in my life, but probably, I've liked some of them, I haven't liked some of them, but then every once in a while you read a book and it just kind of sinks into your bones and it stays with you. It becomes a small part of you. And I always thought that that would be the highest honor if I could do that for someone else.
Wow. So that's really the real reason is you wanted that story to be a pivot or a change for someone else?
I think, ultimately the main reason I do this is to try to connect in some small way. So I hope that people were able to connect with the book, and I guess some people did.
Well, I absolutely love it. I'm halfway through and I cannot wait to finish it. And at the same time, I don't want to finish it because then the story ends. It's a,
Oh,
it's,
so we won't talk about the ending then. That's actually nice. I usually get grilled about the ending, so
oh,
I'm
no, we're not going to give away anything about the story because we have to get people to read the book. But, and I do want to talk about it, but at the same time, how do I talk about it without giving it away? So I thought, let's talk about issues that you bring up in the book. For example, why choose the era of 1951 and Japan?
So I read a lot of World War II historical fiction that's like set around this time period, and most of it's set in Europe. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those can be interesting stories, beautiful stories, wonderful stories, but I wanted to do something different. Being a young woman of color, growing up around a lot of different, people from all over the world, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted a protagonist who I related to a little bit more, who dealt with some issues, racism, colorism, abuse, misogyny, things that it would have been perhaps helpful for me as a young girl to have a character like Nori.
Mhm.
So I think they say that if you can't find a book that's exactly what you're looking for, it's because you were meant to write it. So that is what I did.
Okay, so you wrote the best book you could. And tell me a little bit about Nori. How did she come to you? Is she a creation? Did she just fall in place in the story as you wrote it?
She was the first piece. Before I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do, I had this vision of this girl in my head, and she sort of kind of spoke to me. Like, they say that your characters whisper to you, and she was definitely whispering very loudly, that she had things to say, so I sat down, and over the course of many long years, I finally got that story out in the way that I think it needed to be told. But the serious stuff, the research and the psychological analyses of the characters and all of that, it all came afterwards. So what always starts is that spark of a character with something to say, and then you kind of figure the rest out from there.
Mhm. And so, did you know what Nori wanted to say at the beginning of the story? Did you figure that out as you wrote the story?
Yeah, so I think she wanted to maybe not say so much as show that there are different kinds of strength.
Mhm.
So we tend to think of a strong character as one who is very actively fighting all the time. But some people are just survivors, and that's how they show strength. There's strength and resilience. It's a very underrated kind of strength, I think. And there's strength in remaining kind in the face of unkindness and not allowing it to tarnish you and saying that this is the person I want to be. And I'm not going to allow external factors to shift me from that. I am unmovable in my determination to be this kind of human being. I think that's not appreciated enough. So I think that that's what she would want to say to people.
Well, that's actually a question that I had already, thought about asking you, and it's to do with Nori's strength of character. She's grown up almost like in an attic for a good part of her life, and in fact, when I'm reading a book, I feel like it's The Flowers in the Attic by Virginia Andrews meets Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden.
No, I've never read either of those books.
It's a combination of the two, but there's so much more in your book as well, which kind of stretches beyond it. But that's a feeling I got from the experience that I've had in the books that I've read, and I wanted to know where did her strength and her resilience come from, considering she grew up in an attic under her grandmother's rule, an aristocratic thumb, and she wasn't allowed freedom, and yet she's so bold. She's got this, what you said, inner resilience. Where did that come from?
I think it comes from necessity. They say necessity is the mother of invention. I think that obviously part of it was probably always in her. I think she just had to uncover it. Most of us don't really know what we're capable of until we're tested. I think we all say, oh, I could never do that, or I could never imagine, but even in just growing up, when I was 16, being 26 felt impossible. It really did. It felt like I was going to feel this way forever. Everything that was happening at that moment was the end all be all. Of course it wasn't, but that's how it feels. It's difficult to see past your fence, and it's like being in a tunnel. You can only see what's directly around you. You can't see what's 50 or 100 yards ahead of you.
But
But
Nora can.
yeah.
She can see what's in store for her friend Miyuki when she's at that the second part of the story, when she's at that very difficult stage in her life.
Mhm.
She can see what's in store for her maid, well, not her servant, but her helper,
Mhm.
if he doesn't abide by the rules, because her helper will be in trouble.
Mhm.
And so she knows what to watch out for in this little sort of chess piece of a game that she's trapped in.
Mhm.
So is that also out of necessity, you think, to protect herself? Or is it just out of a wisdom that comes from her hereditary, or where?
I think Nori is a very kind and empathetic person, so perhaps it's easier to see other people in a positive light, or to try to help them, than to see herself in a positive light, or to try to advocate for herself. I think sometimes for a lot of people, what becomes really difficult is figuring out where they're going and why. But I do think she has a way of seeing the people around her.
I definitely think so too. She sees more than what she lets on,
Mhm.
even within the text of your story. And that brings me to the other thing I wanted to know: Akira's character, her half brother.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, how did his character come about? Because he's not your average 15-year-old, 16-year-old boy. He's so very different.
He's very mature, and he's almost um, like a grumpy old man.
In a way, he's pure beyond his years.
Yes, but I think you have to look at it in the context of the story, right? Which is that he has been forced to grow up from a very young age. And I think that his maturity is because he had to take care of himself. He wasn't really allowed to be a child. for very long at all. And, unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that in the world. I think the plight of the eldest daughter, is that we always have to take care of everybody else,
Sure, sure.
So, and this is true across so many cultures. So, I think Akira finds himself kind of in that position. But when he meets Nori, I think he finds that she's a person he wants to know. And this is something that he wants to do. It's not merely an obligation that's been foisted on him by birth. He chooses her.
That's right. Yep. And I've got to that point and past it where he's actually making attempts to break through to her. But he has to be very careful how he does it because of how society operates at the same time. I'm sure there's a lot of research that was involved in this.
There was, yeah. So I definitely had to do research because I was not alive or around in the 40s, but I had some help. I had some people in my life who were willing to help me out. And I find that research can be daunting when you set out to do it, but after you get into it, it's very fun. Right now I'm researching a new novel, and I was actually just watching a documentary about the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, I like documentaries. They're fun. They're good resources, and it's, sometimes easier than reading 50 different books.
Right. So tell me, where did you get your inspiration? For a lot of new writers, it can be daunting, the research. So how do you start navigating that path?
Well, first you have to figure out what story you want to tell. And then, what I'll usually do is like I'll have a dozen different bookmarks on my computer. Like I'll bookmark the clothing that people were wearing at that time, like and I'll look up old newspaper articles, to see what the current events were, what people were thinking about, talking about. I will start bookmarking expressions that are used in the language that I could maybe incorporate. I will start looking for someone who maybe has some lived experience that they would be willing to share with me that I could draw from to incorporate into the book. So it's kind of just like stages, and also you write in drafts. So your first draft doesn't have to be heavy on the detail. It can be kind of a bones thing. And then you can come back once you have more of an idea of the characters and the plot. And once you realize, where the story is going, then you can do more research. I actually find the research is more useful when you've got a very firm idea of where you're going with the book and what point you're trying to make.
Sure. That makes sense because I myself have gone down rabbit holes with research.
It's so easy to do, right? Like you just fall into the internet. So
before you know it, you're way off tangent.
It's so helpful to set like goals and goalposts and, move from there.
So tell me about your writing process. Share a little bit with us about that.
It's chaotic. But lately I've gotten better. I've actually been outlining. I've been writing for a few hours every day. I'm also on deadline, so this isn't going to last. But right now it's working out for me. I'm trying to finish my second book before the end of the year, so that we can go into next year and maybe I can start working on something else.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm really hopeful that I can get this.
Do you have like a regimental or a disciplined rule that you stick to, or is it sort of on the fly? You're writing?
Not usually. It's usually on the fly, but like I'm a huge procrastinator, and I do tend to work better if I have like a firm deadline. So I will give myself deadlines. I'll say, okay, it's Tuesday. You have until Thursday to finish chapter 5. And then if I actually finish chapter 5, then I'll give myself something. Nice. Like a boba, or, I'll like go get some overpriced $8 Manhattan gelato. There's a lot of different things I can do.
So you live in New York, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you're near all the gelato and pizza places.
So I live on the Upper West Side, so there's great Italian restaurants here, and I was raised by an Italian, so I'm very fussy about my Italian food, and definitely a lot of really good
You know
Italian.
what you want.
I know what I want, and a lot of really good Italian food in New York City.
Wonderful. Well, tell us something about yourself, which is outside of the writing.
I'm actually a pretty good cook.
Okay.
It has made me a lot better, but I have an extensive spice cabinet. I have like probably over 100 spices from all over the world.
Wow.
I pretty much exclusively eat ethnic food, if you want to call it that. So I've moved beyond salt and pepper when it comes to great food. Yeah. Those famous American seasonings of salt and pepper. So I'm really enjoying that so far.
Well, wonderful. So before we end, I'd like to ask you for one writing tip to offer our viewers.
One writing tip. Learn the difference between constructive criticism and everyone's opinion.
Oh, can you elaborate there?
You have to take constructive criticism in order to become a better writer, but you also have to learn to spot the difference between constructive criticism and this story is simply not for this reader. You two are not compatible, and it doesn't mean that you need to change. It means that they need to go read something else.
How did you figure that out?
It's not an exact science, but one thing I will say is you have to know what the difference is between someone who's helping you tell the story that you want to tell in the best way possible and someone who is dissatisfied because they want you to tell another story entirely.
That makes sense. That really does.
And that's inevitable. A lot of the times if you read book reviews, the negative reviews will go something like, I was expecting A, B, and C, and I got, X, Y, and Z. Does that mean that you did X, Y, and Z badly? No, it means that they wanted to read a different book than the one that you wanted to write.
That is invaluable because the number of people who are looking to get into critique groups or who are looking to get an agent, query agents, and the number of rejections that come in. I think it's very valid for something like this to be kind of interpreted and understood the right way, because if you keep changing your story according to everybody else, you're going to end up with no story.
Too many cooks.
Yeah.
At some point, it's very important in life and in art to know who you're there for and who you're not there for. Right. I don't write for everyone. That's fine. I'm really, truly at peace with that. I want to be the best writer that I can be, but not everybody is going to like my style and not everybody is going to like what I have to say. And, that's fine.
It's fine. Well, thank you so much, Asha. Words of wisdom for all of us on Story Mantra, which, we continually deal with when we write every day, put words on paper and then look back and think, really, does that make sense? And every story is a new challenge. So thank you so much, Asha. And if any of you want to, again, go over her book, it's 50 Words for Rain. It's available everywhere. I will have the purchase links below the video. And definitely, check out the book and leave a review, because that's the best thing you can do for authors. Leave them a review.
If you like our books, please say something nice, because God knows the people who don't like it will also have some things to say. So it's always helpful.
Well, thank you so much, Asha, for your time. We appreciate it. And we wish you all the best for the second book.
Thank you.
Bye.